I am, oh, thank you for whoever got the recording started, Jen, Jen or Jeremy. So in the Blue Core community, I am part of the metadata and cataloging norms group. In FOLIO, I am former convener of metadata management, outgoing convener of linked open data. I'm also part of Cross App. And I've been part of the FOLIO community since 2017. What excites me about Blue Core is really very similar to what excited me initially and still excites me about FOLIO, which is the opportunity to actually influence the tools that we use to do our work and have the people who do the work give input about what the tools should be like. And part of that also for me is the opportunity to think deeply about what is it we actually do and what is it we actually need. And partly I just enjoy doing that, but I also feel like it helps me do my work better when I truly have to understand, why do I want to be able to click here and have this happen? So I would say my engagement with FOLIO has really informed my engagement with Blue Core. Well, one of the ways it has is that FOLIO taught me the incredible challenge of talking to developers. And the skill of talking to developers. I will say my colleague Jen Colt does this very, very well, and I have learned a lot from her. I've learned a lot from my own mistakes, just in not being explicit and in not even understanding what assumptions I'm making and therefore not articulating. So I hope I'm bringing a slightly better awareness and practice of that to Blue Core, but I am still always learning. And I will just, because you are the first person I'm seeing next on my screen, Callie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I love these questions. I took some notes to help kind of guide my answers. So my role well, I should start with where I work. So my name is Callie Matthews. I'm the Authorities and Entity Management Librarian at Stanford. I'm also very involved with Sinopia. I'm the product owner for the Sinopia Linked Data Editor, which is one of the editors that is being integrated for Blue Core. In the Blue Core community, I'm the product owner and project manager. So I schedule a lot of meetings, I facilitate a lot of meetings, I keep an eye on our timeline, I help address issues that appear across those working teams that Laura mentioned in the earlier slide. I hope and aim to make sure that our work aligns with the overall vision for Blue Core, which you can read more about on our website. But I think the primary thing I do is try to take the user requirements that we have and make sure that they're explained well and prioritized for the development team so that we can make something that works for everybody as best as we can. I also present quite a bit. We had a presentation at the BIBFRAME workshop in Europe last week, Jeremy and I. That recording should be up soon if you're interested. Nancy Lorimer also gave a great talk on Sinopia that you can check out from the BIBFRAME workshop in Europe. So yeah, and what excites me about Blue Core, there's so many things that excite me about this project. I think one of the things that I think about a lot is that I think this is similar to what Laura said, which is librarians shaping the tooling that we'll use. So it's open source, it's library led. It combines a lot of the things that I love about collaborative editing and Wikidata with some of the more traditional professional practices I've learned both in my library program and as a professional librarian over the last however many years to produce something that's very new and unique and really takes the strengths of both. Which I think is just really exciting. I also think it's really important that we look at linked data right now. It can add so much context to research and resources at a time when disinformation and misinformation and advertising and digital media are really saturated and something we confront every day. So I think this is something that will ultimately really benefit our users. And much like Sinopia, I think Blue Core is really exciting because we are actually working to implement BIBFRAME. So we more fully understand how BIBFRAME is going to affect libraries, affect our work, affect our colleagues. across the libraries. And we can do that in an environment because we're a group of libraries that's very free from restriction. So that is very exciting to me. I am rather new to the Folio community, so I've been learning a lot. I think one of the cool things about Folio, and a common thread between Folio and Blue Core is that switching. Can everybody hear me?
انت فينك انت؟
Oh, sorry. I think someone.
وانت بتخرج
Yeah, let me try to figure. Somebody's unmuted.
مواطنك في المدرسة. بعد المغرب اوكي مباشر بالمغرب.
Thank you. Okay, so one common thread that I think is kind of something that always comes back to me is the relationship between moving from MARC to BIBFRAME it feels a lot like a systems migration. So I've been part of system migrations. I wasn't part of the Stanford migration to Folio, but there are a lot of the same considerations and I think questions you ask, and also just the feelings that are involved in the work that you go through in making a change like that and adjusting your workflows. The other thing that I think about a lot, I participate in the metadata management SIG and the Folio linked open data SIG. And I think with BibFrame, much like the Folio community, you have people at different phases of learning about BibFrame and implementing BibFrame. So you have people who have just started, people who've been working and helping develop BibFrame. And in Folio, you have folks who just launched, just became part of the Folio community, and folks like Laura who've been here since 2017. And that range of experience is really great because you have people at all different parts of the process that can help contribute to solving problems. So people who bring fresh perspectives, people who have a ton of experience, and you can kind of work as a group to come up with solutions, which is another thing I think is a common thread is these kind of collaborative group-based ways of looking at and solving problems, and trying to find a way that makes something that works for everyone and doesn't prevent anyone else from doing their work, which is something I see in the Folio community a lot and I'm really inspired by is, I want to make this change for me in my library, but what does that mean for my colleagues in this other place doing these similar but different things, and how do we find compromise? So I really enjoy working in both spaces and seeing how they relate. This was a really fun question to think about. So Laura, do you want to pass it to the next person or should I pick someone?
Yeah, I will, just so we don't all have to remember to do that. Next for me is Simeon.
Okay. Does the microphone sort of my stuff work? Yes, great.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simeon Warner. I'm AUL for IT and Open Scholarship at Cornell. I serve on the sort of governance side of Blue Core, and I guess I'd like to start off with a little bit about my version of the origin story, which is as a Cornell PI for the Mellon Foundation funded LD4L and LD4P series of grants. I think we did some amazingly good work on using linked data for improved discovery, contributing to the refinement of BibFrame and extension ontologies, and developing tools and exploring workflows for actual linked data production cataloging. So especially the development of the Sinopia editor at Stanford and entity lookup services at Cornell. Now, Blue Core is really the next step, the child of that work, and it's the result of reflection on that, where we realized that the key missing piece was the development of infrastructure for shared open metadata that avoids individual institutional copies and allows deeper and more efficient collaboration. So it's my belief that only with a truly shared data store can one leverage the advantages of BibFrame's appropriate separation of entities. And in fact, without a shared environment, if we just replicated the copying version of metadata, I think we'd actually make things worse. And we see only the complications BibFrame adds without the benefits it offers. So what excites me about Blue Core, I'll give two answers to that. One is it's a practical framework to move from MARC to BibFrame. Although one can essentially express the same complexity of description in either, I think the move to linked data foregrounds the idea of links, which should be a greater focus of cataloging going forward and are essential for sort of making library metadata more relevant in our modern world. A second is that Bluecore is about open metadata. Libraries are not in competition. Our goal is collaboration for mutual benefit and public benefit, and that's best achieved with open metadata. I'll note that one of our partners, the Library of Congress, has been a leader in this space for a long time, and we're hoping to build on that. And then the question, I have many answers to all the questions. Engagement with Folio and Bluecore. I'll give three versions here. So one is the original version of Folio took the bold step of separating the inventory from the bibliographic data store. Obviously, the inventory needs some bibliographic metadata, but it's focused on the needs of library operations, acquisition, circulation, all those other things. So essentially, it's a pigeon metadata that allows work within a polyglot metadata environment. And that is a really great foundation for trying to move from, say, MARC to BIBFRAME. So there's a great Folio influence. The second is that Folio is designed with a sort of service orientation, not as a monolithic silo. So the idea of connecting external apps is sort of built into the idea. And we've already seen demonstrations of Sinopia and Marva editors being connected to Folio. And the third, which I think has already been touched on by both Laura and Callie, is the idea of community. Folio, like Bluecore, is not designed by a single institution or a single company in isolation. It's a community effort with all the glorious messiness that involves. But without that messiness, I don't think we can hope to build solutions that work for a diversity of collaborating libraries. Thank you.
Glorious messiness. I love that phrase. Okay, so Jeremy, your little box is up next for me.
Okay. So my name is Jeremy Nelson. I'm a software engineer at Stanford University Libraries. I'm also the tech lead for the prototype for Bluecore. So that's my current role in the Bluecore community. We are approaching the end of our prototype phase, and so that's exciting to sort of reach something, to be able to demonstrate to people what we're trying to do with Bluecore. What excites me about Bluecore? I'll just say ditto for what other people have said in that previously talked about their experiences with Bluecore, but I'm really excited about some of the technical things we're doing in Bluecore. In particular, I think of Bluecore as Sinopia 2.0. I was the technical lead on the Sinopia project. I'm still supporting Sinopia along with Callie. And so our experiences with Sinopia have really informed how we're implementing the infrastructure, the technical infrastructure for Bluecore. I would also say, too, that Bluecore, as we're starting almost from, I don't want to say from scratch, because we certainly have been inspired and use a number of the technologies, both that we're using in Sinopia as well as in Folio. But we have this opportunity now with the sort of in the past 3 or 4 years of the emergence of generative AI to develop an infrastructure that really allows deep hooks of generative AI tooling in core. So that in particular is really exciting for me to be able to implement and sort of see how we can do that. So I'm excited about that with Bluecore as well. How has my engagement with the Folio informed Bluecore and vice versa? So the first thing is that we adopted a couple of key components that's being used and currently in our Folio system as well as Eureka. For example, in Bluecore, we're using KeyCloak to do authentication and authorization for users. So that was a direct choice that we adopted from the Eureka platform. Another component or sort of a design approach in Folio that we've adopted in Bluecore is we're using Postgres, the open source data base, as our core data store. And we're also decided to take the same approach or similar approach as Folio in that the actual BIBFRAME works instances are stored as JSON linked data, and then we're indexing that linked data. Sort of we normalize the BIBFRAME JSON, and we're actually running all of our searching directly with the Postgres functionality and not using like with Data as well as Folio Elasticsearch. So I think we're progressing there on that. And in addition, we're using a vector database, an open source vector database, where we're vectorizing each triple that's in all the resources as a way to sort of enable generative AI and other AI workflows within Bluecore. So that's sort of a new aspect of Bluecore that I'm really excited about. And I will turn it over back to someone else.
Thank you. I love how there are some themes going across this, but we're all coming at this from such different places, and I think that speaks to the strength of the community. Stephen, I don't know if you wanted to speak or not. You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or
Sure. I'll just maybe underscore some points that were previously mentioned. So I'm Stephen Folsom. I'm the head of metadata design and operations, and I've been working in linked data for as long as Cornell's had LD4 asterisk grants. And so I think the first thing I'll say is I'm excited that we're actually committing to production cataloging and linked data. I think it feels silly to say that out loud, but we've learned a lot over the years, yeah, so it's nice to know that we have that commitment, at least at some level at our institution. The other thing I feel is important to say or re-say is Bluecore's commitment to upstream edits in shared environments, so that the greatest, or as Simeon said, public open data that folks can access, influence, and so on. I like that, and when we get into the weeds, we're starting to solidify metadata practices for interoperability. And coupled with that is APIs that understand those practices and allow us to choose different tools. And so when we load the data into Marva, it doesn't just balk. Like Sinopia data can show up in Marva data and vice versa. So that's really exciting for me. And then as far as the Folio teachings, I think what Simeon said is great. The idea that bibliographic data, or that we have a flexible environment to onboard. It's a nice design decision to help us in this transition. We can accept a mark, we can accept BibFrame, and do our operations no matter the bibliographic metadata serialization. We can do inventory, we can do discovery, etc. So yeah, it was a really smart decision by Folio folks some time ago. Yeah.
thank you. Nancy.
There, I thought you were going to forget about me.
I could never
Hi,
forget about you.
I am Nancy Lorimer, Associate Director for Metadata Services at Stanford University. Like Stephen and Simeon, I have been in the LD4 grants almost since the beginning. And this project seems in many ways for me like a long time coming. I think we once thought we were going to go into linked data production in 2 years, and well, it's several years past that, 2 years now. So it is all really very exciting. It coming last, it puts me at a bit of a disadvantage because I agree with absolutely everything everybody else said. But I think one thing that I really like is that we will be doing linked data cataloging with BibFrame, not using MARC at all as a crutch for anything. We might be ingesting MARC, but that will be converted into BibFrame one way or other. And that we will be it will be truly shared cataloging. The idea of copy cataloging or even original cataloging all sort of fades into just cataloging as a group, as a shared group. Like Stephen, I'm also excited about the fact that the practical proof of interoperability of what we're doing with data coming in from multiple editors. I think we hope to add a third in the coming year or so, hopefully. I think, again, that it is linked open data and that our data will be available to anybody who wants to make use of it. And let's see, the last one, the engagement with FOLIO. Well, you know, we have been only with FOLIO for a year now, a year and a bit. This is our second conference, and we went into production during the conference last year. So I think, or the year before. Yeah, I guess it was the year before, come to think of it. So 2 years. We went to FOLIO because of its open source aspects, and that we thought it would be very supportive of linked data. We still believe that, though we have found a lot of impediments, just partly with the history of FOLIO. I mean, everybody that came into FOLIO originally was using MARC. So a lot of the stuff became, such as data import, became very MARC oriented. But I think this is a thing we will be working towards, workflows that either work around that or will help change FOLIO into being a more, what's the word, ecumenical in the data that it accepts. And we're excited to bring Blue Core and FOLIO together in such a way to make both of them stronger. And stronger communities as well.
I don't think I missed anybody. Did I miss anybody who is thinking they are here as a panelist? If so, please. Otherwise, I'm going to stop sharing because that way I'm hoping people can see each other better. I don't know what you're seeing in the room. Let me know if I can change anything there. At this point, I would love to entertain questions for our audience, or if panelists have questions for each other. But I wanted to start with, do we have questions from people who are not part of this project? And if you are in person, if you could please use a microphone somehow. Or if someone could repeat the questions. Oh, thank you for.
Can you guys hear the mic?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yesterday, people in the room could hear the mic in one of the places, but nothing. So I was just going to ask, because we sort of started the day talking about governance, how you're thinking about the governance of the software versus the governance of the data. Like, the exciting part about this is the open data. So is that all one process, one organ? Like, how does it work?
Perhaps I should speak as the representative of the governance group for Blue Core on this project. So the software we will be treating much like the data, in the sense that will be open source license. Now, of course, that's kind of the cop-out part of the answer, which is more complicated if you consider, say, who can contribute, how do you decide which way it's going, and that at the moment is controlled within the group of the current set of partners, which Laura put up, the 5 institutions that are currently involved. However, an important part of our strategy is to think about, let's assume we are successful and we want to allow additional participants at different levels. So what is the model for growing the number of partner institutions? Are there ways that institutions that aren't ready to sort of contribute fully and say cover the costs of developing Blue Core but want to interact in other ways, how can they do that? And I'm afraid the answer at the moment is we haven't worked this out, but we feel that this is essential for the future of Blue Core. We've set ourselves up with a sort of 3-stage plan, and we are just ending the first stage, which is develop a prototype. So we have a software system and a set of workflows that supports a sort of set of key operations around ingesting and transforming data, storing it in a way that it can be fed out to discovery systems, and integrating editors connected to lookup services to do cataloging work on that data store. That's a very simplified picture. So we're currently in a sort of nearing the completion of that prototype phase, and then we'll be doing a bunch of assessments before moving into what we're calling the MVP phase, which is sort of additional development to create a system that could be used for real production cataloging work. And as part of that phase, the government side of things will be thinking about how do we grow the community and develop that before moving into sort of the full production phase. Maybe Callie would like to add additional things that I missed out.
No, I think that was wonderful. And I just popped a link in the chat to, excuse me, dev.bcld.info. It will give you links. Many of them require the Keycloak login that Jeremy mentioned earlier, but it will give you a sense for what we're developing and provide some links to things like the workflow. I think you can access the available aspects of our GitHub if you want to take a peek at what the development team has been working on. And just as Simeon said, we're wrapping up that prototype development now and entering in this assessment period where we'll be working out a lot of things that we've both been thinking about during the prototype phase, but new questions that have come up based on the work we've done this year.
And if I could add something about the governance of the metadata, that's something that we've talked about talking about. It is, in my mind, perhaps one of the biggest challenges of this whole thing is how do we decide how we make decisions when we don't necessarily agree? I think having a process for collective decision-making and coming to an agreement and documenting that is really important. And in my dream version of Blue Core, the system itself will help enable those conversations really among catalogers, but also recording, this was the decision made, this is why. And that's something that I feel is often lacking when I'm cataloging in current environments is I can see that somebody else made a decision. I can see that various other institutions have done various things, though I can't tell who's done what, but I don't know why. And I can't easily just say, hey, why did you choose that as the main entry? Stephen?
Yeah, I was just going to say that Laura did a good job talking about sort of norms in the space, in a collective cataloging space. But one thing I want to point out is that Blue Core members are engaged in broader metadata standards decisions and following those. And so it's not simply us going it alone, but we're trying to adopt decisions being made, for example, in the BIBFRAME interoperability group. And so some of the data governance is us implementing broader shared metadata decisions. And so yeah, hopefully we can just be a good actor in this space and build out uh, implementations of decisions being made in the PCC, big elsewhere spaces.
Right. I was just going to add to that, that also not just at the level of the interoperability group, but I mean, we are catalogers, many of us, and we do follow the decisions of the PCC and RDA as much as we can. And many of us are actually involved in those groups as well, one way or other.
Hello, this is Gloria from EBSCO. Good to see everyone online. My question is probably for Jeremy, but I'm curious to learn more about your decision to vectorize every triple. Do you see any scalability limits with that? And can you talk about the motivations behind vectorizing everything versus a more selective approach?
So scalability is something that we'll approach when we get there. I think I would say that we'll worry about that when we get there. At this point, that's more of an MVP decision. Regarding vectorizing everything as opposed to selective triples, I think as we're experimenting on that, partly depending on what type of AI agents. Our first AI agent we'll be working on as a deduplication agent, which as incoming works and instances, we will have the model sort of produce an equivalent BIBFRAME work or instance that's coming in. We'll vectorize that and compare it against the vector data store. Yeah, so that's very much part of the experimental aspect of Blue Core. And we'll hopefully next year we'll have some more data on to answer those questions for sure. Thanks.
I'm sorry to ask another question. So I hadn't heard. So I've gone to some of your AI sessions, but I think I hadn't been thinking about it in terms of Blue Core. And I guess I'm wondering how the group is making decisions about AI and what to trust AI to do. Obviously, in the cataloging space, there's been a lot of not great conversations about AI. So yeah, I guess just how you're feeling about that.
So I again, sort of I think Blue Core really gives us an opportunity to answer some of these open questions we have about AI, and to reference Gloria's question, and what that looks like at scale. I mean, a lot of our experiments have been very small with small collections, and now Blue Core gives us opportunity to really sort of expand that and see what's available. Part of the power of generative AI is at scale, being the large ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. The reason they're so successful now is because they're operating on unimaginable scale, and we as libraries haven't really done that quite yet. Or if we have, that's not done in a really open or transparent way. So this gives us an opportunity not only to start experimenting at scale, but also to be transparent about that and to be very open about what we're doing and the results of that, to sort of inform what we can do. Personally, I don't think generative AI is going to go away anytime soon. I think it's here to stay, and that we have to figure out ways how libraries in general, how we can interoperate and how we can provide value beyond just libraries. And I think Blue Core gives us a way to start talking about those in a little bit broader sense.
I would just also add, I agree with everything Jeremy said, and Jeremy's work in AI for LAM and having like a lot of great leadership around this area has been really helpful. And I think a lot of catalogers on the project have also been experimenting with AI and have done so at both smaller scale and more fully fleshed out ideas. Some of our colleagues at Penn have been experimenting with AI too. And so I think for the MVP phase, as Jeremy alluded to earlier, the prototyping phase has really been about experimenting, seeing what we can build, seeing what some of the challenges might be, and identifying what we want to carry on for the MVP or what we might want to reshape for the MVP or the production phases. And so I'm really excited about the conversations we might have between catalogers, developers, and perhaps user experience staff or patrons themselves about what they want to see from AI. And maybe this goes back to Laura's question about Folio and the Folio community. It's like, how do you take what can sometimes be a sticky topic because there are a lot of perspectives around it and a lot of emerging technologies around it. And how can you create something that really benefits a workflow, really benefits patrons, really saves us time, and takes advantage of some of these technologies. So I'm interested in it and seeing what we can do, but I think we'll still be figuring that out as we go.
And two things stand out to me from what you just said, Kelly. One is the iterative nature of this, which reminds me of the earlier days of Folio, where things were also very iterative. And, you know, having that room to explore. But I also wanted to speak up as somebody who is pretty stubbornly resistant to the idea of using AI in many contexts, particularly things like metadata creation. But to me, this is an exciting opportunity for me to see value in it for something like duplicate detection, where we're not asking it to do what we do well. We're asking it to do something it might actually be able to do better than we can, and that will save us time so that we can focus on the things that humans do better. And I see Masood has a question in chat. How do you see Bluecore's position to other central repositories of linked data entities like ShareVDE family? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
So I will. I'll put in something. At least 2 members of Bluecore, I think. No, 3 members of Bluecore are also members of ShareVDE. So we do not look at them as being in competition with each other. They are complementary to one another. And at least some of us are continue to work with ShareVDE to find places where we can actually benefit one another with these projects, and are actually really excited to be working on both to bring this world together, and also having multiple repositories of data one way or another. Even though we want to catalog in one place, but there's always safety in numbers of repositories. And of course, ShareVDE also goes well beyond just the ShareVDE aspect. They do many other things as well. And having the input from that area as well will be also very interesting. I just also wanted to mention with the AI aspect, like Laura, the deduplication thing, I think is a really exciting aspect to be dealing with. And I will say the other exciting thing is, I mean, you know, a lot of catalogers have been playing around with AI one way or another, but they don't necessarily have, you know, access to AI in such a way that is dedicated to their particular needs or whatever. And this actually gives catalogers the opportunity to test it out and actually see if it actually works or not. And we can happily say when it does not, as well as saying when it is. And we have that voice in Bluecore. I think Stephen has an addition.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I want to look at Lisa's question.
Sure. Back to this, the other central repositories or data hubs, I think that's inevitable. And part of what I was saying before about interoperability and APIs, I think a natural progression of this work will be to have hubs being able to influence quality across hubs too, in whatever way that looks like. And hopefully what Bluecore can do is help influence other service providers to think about decoupling access and influence over the metadata from the services themselves. And I use this analogy a lot recently, but like we all email each other, but we all have different email clients. And so something along that line where it's like we can somebody can be interested in working in the shared VDE data, but cataloging in another space. Can the APIs enable some of that so that we can do copy cataloging across hubs too? And so I think it's early days for some of that level of coordination between systems, but I think it's a natural progression of the work and a recognition of the inevitable that there's going to be multiple data sets that we want to consume and interact with. Yeah, it's a great question.
And I think this will be our last question because I see we only have 2 minutes left. Lisa asks in chat, will you also be testing other non-AI reliant methods of duplicate detection and comparing performance to any AI methods? I ask because AI is incredibly resource intensive and sometimes may not be necessary for the task.
I think even one of our governance folks asked this question about this particular, like the dedupings, like might there be other less costly methods? And I think that's part of the analysis, right? To both the effectiveness and the cost. And cost can be defined, as the question rightly points out, a number of ways. Yeah.
I don't know if you want the last word on this, Jeremy.
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, that's part of the experimentation for sure. We are very much interested in comparing this and allow us to experiment at scale. I mean, that's that's sort of the key difference that Bluecore enables us to do.
So I'd like to thank my fellow panelists for agreeing to show up and talk about Bluecore and encourage any of you who have been listening to reach out to any of us with questions, comments, concerns, etc. And have a great rest of your day at WOLFcon.